Please welcome General Manager, Industrial IoT and Edge, AWS, Michael McKenzie.
Good morning. I'm really thrilled to be here with you at reInvent, and I'm honored to be the one this year that they picked to give the IoT leadership session. My name is Michael McKenzie. I'm the GM for Industrial IoT and Edge at AWS, but today I have the privilege of covering all of our great IoT services. Fun fact, it wasn't very long ago that I was also a customer sitting in the sitting in the audience just 2 years ago, watching reInvent. And through my career, I've spent a lot of time in the field deploying IoT solutions, leading IoT engineering teams, and I faced a lot of the same challenges that many of you face every day. I came to AWS because I saw this opportunity to bring it all together, solve some of those problems in the field, and use the power of hyperscale cloud and this big company of AWS to solve more problems with IoT and do cool things together. So, now, we've had a great year. You might know last reInvent, we launched IoT Core for LoRaWAN, and we brought you the Connected Cow. We were very proud of that one. It was super cool. Now, we innovate all year. We don't just launch at reInvent. And through the year, we did the Connected Cow, we did our LoRaWAN. In May, we did IoT Fleet Hub to help you manage devices at scale and get better visibility with device management. In July, we launched Sitewise Edge to bring Sitewise capabilities and Sitewise Monitor to the industrial edge. At this reInvent, we've got a lot more great things that we're launching. And starting with our continued journey on the LoRaWAN path, we've launched a network analyzer that solves the FWOTA problem, the firmware over the air update. We've expanded our software catalog for Greengrass. We've done some managed job templates for IoT device management. FreeRTOS now has a cellular library that's in GA, available today. Greengrass has launched native support for Windows, and that's a really big deal for industrials who typically run on Windows in their factories and in some of their processes. We've also launched extended maintenance plans for FreeRTOS, and this will be for up to 10 years of support. Now, when I talk to customers about these innovations and the fact that we are constantly launching all year round, they're really excited, but through these conversations, we've heard a lot of evolution. We've heard a lot of changes in the way customers are thinking about IoT. And really, what we've determined and what we've learned from our customers is that IoT itself is evolving. The way people are thinking about how to apply IoT is changing. And we're really solving big world business challenges. And we're looking for those optimal business outcomes by applying IoT technologies to those spaces. Very few people come to us and say, I want an IoT solution. They come to us and say, I need to solve a problem, and how can you help me? And when we started talking about IoT back in the day, we typically went to a whiteboard, we drew a device, a mythical device, we drew an arrow, and we said, we're gonna collect data. And we're gonna draw that up to this cloud icon that we all drew on the whiteboard, and we said, okay, that's IoT, great. Then, as we went along, we said, look at all this data we're collecting. We really have this big data. We have all this sensor data. All these seemingly unrelated devices can now come together for secondary sensing and other use cases. And we have this mass amount of data that we can look through and analyze and get deeper insights into. So we started adding a little box with that cloud icon saying, analysis. Let's do some analysis. If we have analysis, we'll get this right. Now we'll have true value out of IoT. And this is true. We've evolved how we think about connecting devices to being a data problem and data-driven everything when we're thinking about this. But what's really interesting is as we continued to analyze that data, we started seeing that there was opportunities to feed this back to the people, back to the processes, back to the equipment on site to really close that loop and make sure that we were achieving better business outcomes faster, more optimally, more efficiently. And so we've started to talk about IoT synonymously with machine learning and AI. You really can't talk about IoT today without also considering deep learning models, machine learning models, things like that. And how can we take those insights and put an algorithm in the middle and understand what that algorithm is going to figure out for us that maybe the humans are missing? Because with all that data collaborating and colliding together, machine learning really brings us a new additional power that we can put these algorithms back into the loop and do things even more efficiently so that we can act. And we can push that back into the process, we can push that back into the devices, and we start to achieve even better business outcomes. So why do we do this? Well, digital transformation truly is disrupting everything. And IoT is one of the technologies that will enable that and will continue to empower that disruption. The bridge between the physical and the digital worlds makes IoT one of the most disruptive technologies of a generation. And coping with all that change, it actually provides you a great business opportunity if you can get it right. We can remove human error, we can make things faster, more efficient, more optimal by gathering up all the data that we have available to us, untrapping value in equipment, untrapping value in sensors that we could augment in our systems and our processes, things like that, and pull that all together to start driving new and better business outcomes. And with AWS IoT, you have that chance to work with us. We love working with our customers. We're 100% customer obsessed, and at least 90% of what we build comes directly from you. The other 10%, we try to build some thought leadership, we try to peek around corners, but much of our roadmaps comes directly from you. And we're working with great customers, customers like Yara. Yara is feeding the world. They're creating healthier plants. They're working with their customers to build healthier, more robust crops. They're a leader in this market for food and for fertilizer production. And Yara is using AWS IoT Sitewise, AWS IoT Greengrass, AWS IoT Core, and even Amazon SageMaker to apply to their production data and start to understand more about the data story of their own process and make sure that with that data, they can produce a higher quality fertilizer, a higher quality yield and crops, and feed the world that much better. We've also worked this year with Kone. You might know Kone as an elevator company traditionally, but Kone is far more. Kone is a really interesting, innovative company. We worked with them for about the last 6 months on this vision of what will the office look like when people start coming back to work? How could that be a smarter space? And we started to talk to Kone about their vision of people management in the edge. And how could you have the building itself adapt to people's schedules when they came in the building and we were worried about social distancing and we're thinking about how do we keep workers safe? How do we keep people coming back flexible and fluid and moving between floors if there's a space management issue, or perhaps you've got a meeting room booked and 10 more people are showing up than you expected. How do we keep those socially distanced aspects? How do we flexibly adapt to the worker who's also working remotely half the time and sometimes in the office? So we've been working with Kone on this vision for how to do this reimagined office of the future, and it's been really interesting working with them. Now we also have Waters, and Waters is a really interesting company. They're a leader in providing lab equipment, supplies, and software for scientists. But Waters had this vision of how will things look, how do they keep their workers safe, their scientists safe when they come back to work? How do they maintain that social distance that they need to maintain? And they did something really cool and really innovative. They took the technology that's used for the NFL and the NBA, where they're using this little IoT sensor in their shorts to track the speed and location of players. It makes for great television. But Waters used this and adapted this technology with their partner Connection to work as a social distancing tracker and make sure that their workers can remain safe using IoT and using these distance trackers so that they have more confidence with their workers returning to the office. We also have companies like Blue Air providing devices into the consumer market. Blue Air is part of the Unilever family, and Blue Air wanted to produce this connected air purifier that actually also had an indoor air quality sensor. So Blue Air is using these indoor air quality sensors to alert users when the air quality is bad, great during forest fire season, for example, and make sure that those users have that data to take action that they need to take, get out of the area, turn on the filters, whatever that might be. But that connected air filter sensor to keep people safer and use that as an innovation for their product. Now, let me talk a little bit about what we still face as an industry. We've got a lot of great innovation, but things are still sometimes a little bit harder than they should be. And we've got billions of devices out there. We've got challenges of customers who are embedded developers, great product visions. They want to build these things, but they don't necessarily know the ins and outs of a secure cloud connection and understanding that network infrastructure. It's really challenging as a company that's trying to build devices when not every embedded developer is cloud savvy, and not every cloud developer could write in embedded. You have to think about, how do we do this securely? How do we do this at scale? What about doing this remotely? And how do we do this in real time on demand? So I'm really excited today to talk about one of the simple things that we've done to make this easier. And I'm pleased to announce the launch of IoT Express Link. It's a simple, powerful solution that allows you to easily, quickly develop secure IoT devices. And this is what it looks like. Now, working with some of our partners like u-blox, Espressif, Infineon, we've embedded software libraries with these partners right onto the boards so that an embedded developer can now call out to, send to cloud. That's all they need to know. We handle the complex TLS handshake, we handle the network, we handle everything else. And then they listen on a pin the way they normally do for I/O for, here's the response back from the cloud. This is making it extremely simple for embedded developers to be cloud savvy and cloud ready. These modules, they provide an out-of-the-box solution. It securely transmits data to and from the cloud via Wi-Fi or even cellular, like this model in my hand. And it's designed so that developers of all skill levels can take products to be IoT devices without having to merge large amounts of data or have deep understanding of underlying implementations. This is compatible with resource-constrained devices, and it enables builders to connect devices to the cloud without providing that, without having to rewrite that original application software. Best of all, it's available today, and we're really excited to have people using it. So what does that look like in real life? Well, I was talking yesterday at breakfast with Ben from iRobot, one of our very first IoT customers to do this at scale. And we talked a little bit about this, and I said, Ben, would this have been exciting for you 5, 10 years ago? He said, yes, I was a roboticist when I came to iRobot, but one of the first things I was asked to do was connect devices to the cloud. And this isn't that obvious to a roboticist, right? Now we take a company like Eden. We've been working with Eden, who's a smart product company with the mission of making plants grow indoors. They make the green thumb so that you don't have to have it. This would go great at my house. Eden spent about 2 years working on connecting, collecting, and creating that connection to the cloud. But there's a lot of additional challenges that come with this. Things like, how do I manage the over-the-air updates? What do I do when the TLS version changes? All of these things that Eden's product developers, who are very good product developers, they didn't have a ton of experience doing. So when we told them about IoT Express Link, they got really excited. They believe this will help accelerate their development of products from months and years down to days. So we're really excited to be working with companies like Eaton. And I really love that we're able to help companies like this accelerate with such a simple change, such a simple partnership that we're doing with our partners in the space. Now I want to talk about something a little bit more complex. When we look at industrial automation and we look at autonomous vehicles, unmanned things that are running around our plants and some of the industrial automation, it becomes a little bit more complicated. We see multiple vendors with multiple systems. Many of these systems are legacy systems. Many were never designed to interoperate with other systems, and it becomes a really big challenge, particularly in automated autonomous vehicles, to orchestrate those and have those tie into a single system. Now, we're really lucky that we have Amazon fulfillment centers in our own backyard, and it works as a great learning factory for us to understand some of the biggest challenges that companies have. To deal with the scale of these vehicles, Amazon built applications using IoT Greengrass, connected to IoT Core, and connected these. I think we've got now 12 different applications at 60 different fulfillment sites, connected these up to create new and connected experiences for these autonomous vehicles. And they found that this had a significant impact on fulfillment center costs and speed while reducing the environmental impact. And we've learned from them, and we've learned from some of our customers that it could still be better. There's still challenges to system-level optimization. Control systems from different robots aren't meant to work interoperable. They are designed by the vendor to do what they do best. Deploying robots is often complex. They have, we want to have them connect to multiple system environments like WMS or MES systems to get their data and to understand where they're supposed to be. And it's often difficult to build these optimization applications after the fact. So once again, I think if you were at Midnight Madness, you might have seen us launch IoT RoboRunner. But we're really excited about this one because, oh, sorry. I launched IoT RoboRunner, yeah. We're really excited about this because, based on our experience with Amazon and with some of our customer feedback, we understood that we had a part to play in making this easier, making this much more streamlined, and be able to do that orchestration layer that these autonomous vehicles need. We do the undifferentiated heavy lifting from multiple robot types, putting them into a centralized, standardized repository. And as robots grow in diversity and scale, we see this as a big future for us. We think that there's a lot of meat left on this bone, and we're really just getting started with seeing how robots and IoT are going to come together. Let me tell you about AGCO. AGCO is a major manufacturer of industrial equipment, and you might know them from brands like Massey Ferguson. AGCO uses these autonomous vehicles in their plants to move heavy equipment, heavy tractor parts and things like that from station to station as they're being manufactured. And AGCO had a really big challenge because they wanted to build this intelligent, scalable fleet management system for multiple types of robotic assets, but they needed this to be fully orchestrated. Imagine if you have two unmanned vehicles coming to an intersection. How do you know which one gets to go first? How do you know which one is going to turn and be safe? How do we orchestrate these coming from multiple systems, multiple vendors, so that things don't just grind to a halt as soon as two robots encounter each other? So working with AGCO, AGCO used IoT RoboRunner to help connect up these robots and integrate these into their enterprise systems. And what you're seeing on our screen here is an example of that. Now, using IoT RoboRunner, AGCO is not only able to get an optimized number of robots up and running super fast in a timely and cost-effective manner, but it's also going to reduce their processing times. It'll optimize equipment usage. It's going to improve their ergonomics, and it's creating an improvement in their on-time delivery. So let me tell you now a little bit more about that second step. Once you get that data, this is where things start to get really interesting. Analytics and analysis is where we begin to see the true power of data-driven everything. We can generate insights. We start to learn more about those sensors out there. We gather up all that data. We see that we have secondary sensing opportunities. And by putting actionable insights into the hands of the people that need them, we create new business outcomes. There's a couple of considerations when you're doing this, though. One is where. It's probably the number one question for IoT. Are you going to process the data in the cloud? Do you need it in the cloud? Do you need this processing to happen in the edge? Or is it on-premise? Is it a hybrid? We don't know. So understanding that is the first big challenge, first big consideration. Next is how much. Are you processing high volumes of tiny data, tiny messages that should flow through a highly scalable channel? Or are you processing terabytes or petabytes of data, including historical data from on-premise systems, married up with that real-time streaming data? Next is how advanced. And what I mean by that is, can we get away with simple algorithms, simple min-max average? Can we apply simple heuristics, things like that? Or do we need to go to the AI/ML model? Should we use deep learning? Should we use machine learning to get out that extra value, that trapped value that might be in that data? And finally, what's the delivery? Where do you think your users will use this data the most? How do they expect that? Are they expecting this on a mobile phone or a tablet? Are they expecting to see this in a control tower, operating an entire factory floor? So understanding the delivery is really key. And we've been working with customers throughout the year on this same challenge. Customers like Technobrazing, where we talked about, where do you need this to happen? Technobrazing put this in the edge, put their processing and their analysis in the edge using IoT Greengrass. And by doing that, they managed to save 70% on unplanned downtimes. Decreased 70% for unplanned downtimes. It's pretty impressive. BPX, they were looking at how do we, BPX is a US-based onshore oil and gas business, if you don't know. And they used Amazon SageMaker to drive more environmentally friendly and more efficient processes into their process. And this is by using Amazon SageMaker, building up those machine learning models, and sometimes putting an engineer in the loop, but other times putting an algorithm in the loop to make the most optimal, fastest decision possible. Lyle is a leader in biotech, and they use IoT Sitewise Monitor in terms of that delivery question. They use Sitewise Monitor to do this deeper analysis of real-time streaming data. They get this up in front of their people, and they're using this through Grafana to visualize their data, help them resolve issues as part of their continuous improvement plan, and get that deeper insight that they need out of the data. But the one I want to come back to is CCI. CCI is a Coca-Cola bottling plant in Turkey. They're probably, I think they're the 4th largest bottler in the world for Coca-Cola products. And CCI came to us talking about having a digital twin of their factory. And this is a way that they wanted to model their assets, collect up all that data, and try to make sense out of this data that was coming from their shop floor. And when they did this, they had petabytes of data, hundreds of sensors, and they needed to get deeper insights so that they could do process improvements and try to achieve their sustainability goals. Now, using IoT Sitewise Monitor and some other IoT services, IoT Core, IoT Greengrass, they were able to pull up this data, do that deeper analysis, and saved 20% on their energy bill, analyzing petabytes of data. Perhaps more importantly, because they're a bottler, as you can imagine, water consumption is a really big concern for them. They saved 9% on their water consumption. That's a big deal. So I want to tell you a little bit more about one customer that you might be excited to hear about, how we've been helping them gather insights, and that's Lockheed Martin, which is really an amazingly innovative company. Lockheed Martin, and I'm going to look at my notes so I get this right. Lockheed Martin is a global security and aerospace company that employs approximately 114,000 people. It's principally engaged in research, design, development, manufacture, integration, and sustainment of advanced technology systems, products, and services. That's quite a mouthful. Suffice to say, Lockheed Martin is an extremely innovative company, and we're really excited to be working with them. So we've got a little video. Please roll the clip.
We need to build quality products with performance, speed, and total cost of ownership dropping. And to do that, we need to look at intelligent factory frameworks that give us the opportunity to develop those pieces, components, integrate those systems, and deliver to our customer.
We started looking down the road, how do we connect our factories? I was challenged by the CIO at the time to begin looking at how we could connect these devices, just gather all the data, and then we'll begin to figure out what the data tells us. So working with AWS, we decided to hook up Greengrass, IoT Core, and begin to just grab everything that came off the machines and pump them into our data lake. We had to be able to protect that data as we're grabbing it from the shop floor, and then be able to use it in the context that could help us understand what's happening while we're building some of these very complex systems.
Looking at the intelligent factory framework we wanted to put in place, we discovered that utilizing AWS Greengrass with AWS IoT Core and transmitting into an S3 environment, we really had some interesting opportunities that other services and platforms didn't offer us. With SiteWise, the nice thing is the modeling is flexible and scalable. You can adopt one model to another model and make the copies where you need to make them. It simplifies the process. The cool thing was AWS brought a team of professionals together. They got us in a couple of training sessions. My team was able to pick it up fairly quickly. Within 2 weeks, we were already developing our own hierarchies and functions.
We're just now collecting data, starting to bring it in and visualize it. I think the key is going to be when we really get it into our end users' hands. So we're hoping to get to the point where we give them the dashboard tools, the Grafana tools, and the QuickSight, give them the ability to start playing with the data and then sharing them across the corporation, or at least across MFCs and enterprise. And then once MFC's done, we're sort of like the exemplar for the rest of the corporation in our industrial factory framework.
So it's pretty exciting to talk about Lockheed. Again, a really innovative, really interesting customer. And you can see the amount of transformation that Lockheed has undergone using some of our tools to help augment that. Lockheed has a long journey ahead of them, but we're really excited to be working with them. And it's interesting to see the transformation of one company, but we also see transformation happening across entire industries. And one of the industries that we're seeing that in right now is in the automotive industry. According to Business Insights from Fortune, the connected vehicle market is expected to grow at 3 times over the next 5 years, from $63 billion to $192 billion by 2028. Now, you can imagine how much data every single connected car generates. And you can imagine how much more exponentially more data that these connected vehicles are going to generate over the next 10 years. So I'm really excited, really delighted to bring on stage Mike Jamaloukas, my peer GM of AWS IoT Automotive, to share what we're doing in the automotive space. Mike.
Mike.
Good one.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the part of the IoT session that focuses primarily on what is happening in the automotive. So I'm delighted here to talk about how cars have changed over the last decade more than they had over the last 100 years combined. The automotive industry is going through a rapid transformation phase. We see automakers focusing from mechanical and hardware systems to being mostly software-driven these days. For example, a 2021 vehicle model is having an infotainment system today there that has more than 100 million lines of code. That's the equivalent of what you will find in an F-35 fighter jet. Most recently, we see the automakers moving even further upstream, using data for analytics, for machine learning and AI, and all things that can enable your comfort, your safety, and your autonomy. We work with technology leaders like NXP and Autonomo to accelerate this transformation towards a data-driven industry. So we are excited here to talk about some of the opportunities that data can unlock. So first of all, data can create new revenue streams for the automakers. Automakers can create mobility services, such as autonomous driving on demand based on data. Automakers can make their customers, the drivers and the passengers, more happy by creating personalized experiences that continuously learn from data. Last but not least, automakers can gain competitive advantages by democratizing access to their data and therefore solving problems faster and improving operational efficiencies. But with data, we have a lot of problems to solve. So we are looking at vehicles. We have been talking to customers around their vehicles and the data access of their vehicles. And we have heard that there is a significant amount of fragmentation across different vehicle models because they have different features, different capabilities, different formats. Therefore, there is no such thing as a single representation of a vehicle, even within the same automaker. Another challenge that we are hearing from the automakers is around the growing amount of data that is being collected. With vehicles moving more towards sophisticated sensors like cameras, LiDARs, and radars for their safety and autonomy needs, we are now in the position where, in some cases, gigabytes, if not terabytes, of data are being generated from each and every single vehicle per day. And that's a hard problem to work with. Yet another problem that we are hearing from the automakers has to do with how can we discover in a timely manner those 1 in a million anomalies that sometimes exist in production vehicles. An example of that, if your front-facing radar system has a false positive, and this triggers a ghost braking event, that is not going to be good for the automaker or for the driver and the passengers. So because of all of these challenges that we see in the data universe of the automotive, we are excited to introduce AWS IoT Fleetwise. Thank you. Thank you. A new AWS service that makes it easy to collect, transform, and transfer vehicle data to the cloud at scale. We believe that automakers would love AWS IoT Fleetwise for the following reasons. Number one, AWS IoT Fleetwise makes it easy to access data across all your vehicle models. We do that by creating a global signal catalog that is based on open standards and is cloud native. Number two, we are solving the problem of how am I going to transport all of these tons of data, and we reduce the costs and improve the signal-to-noise ratio of what is important to you by using intelligent data filtering. AWS IoT Fleetwise, under the hood, has the ability to select only the data that matter. And number three, AWS IoT Fleetwise can detect and mitigate problems more quickly by collecting data from your entire fleet near real time. So for all of these great capabilities that AWS IoT Fleetwise brings in, we thought, why don't we put this to test? So we set off to work with our partner, NXP, that makes vehicle gateways, vehicle modems in some ways, to create an exemplary use case around accurately predicting electric vehicle range. A quite difficult problem to solve today. And what we did there is we used AWS IoT Fleetwise to intelligently collect weather data, traffic data, battery consumption data. And where now we were able, near real time, to bring all of those pieces together, we were able to get better visibility in what are some of the patterns around the battery drainage, the electric vehicle battery drainage, and what can we do in order to improve the accurate estimation so that your driver knows that they can reach home tonight and they won't get stranded. But as excited as I am to introduce IoT Fleetwise, we are on a journey to creating actionable insights from the big data loop between vehicles and things in general. And for that, I'm going to re-invite Mike to the stage to tell you more. Thank you all.
Nice job, Mike. Thanks, Mike. It's super cool to be part of the transformation that's happening in the connected vehicle market. I think we're all really excited about it. We see a ton of interest from the automotive sector and getting this better data from these devices that are out there that are little mobile edge gateways in many cases. So it's great to be a part of that transformation, building on the experience that we've had as well in the automotive manufacturing with companies you've seen in the past re:Invents like Volkswagen and others. So we're really excited to be seeing that. Now, we've been talking a lot about how we help customers connect, collect, and analyze their data. But it's really important that we talk about that whole loop back to the action, back to the device, back through the process. And one of the ways companies are doing this is with digital twins. Now, the term digital twin, some of you might be snickering in the audience because this means something different to almost everybody that you ask. Sometimes people are talking about a design twin. Sometimes they're talking about an operational twin. Sometimes they're talking about a simulation twin. At AWS, we believe in choice. We think everybody's right. We actually think that all of this is an evolution and is all going to be part of how we close that loop back to the process with IoT. The way we've defined digital twin is very intentional. We've said a digital twin is a living digital representation of a physical system that is dynamically updated to mimic the structure, the state, and the behavior of the physical system that's used to drive business outcomes. We've been very intentional about including that. Business outcomes, that's what this is all about. Now, we've worked with visionary companies in the last 5-6 years, like Woodside, a company out of Australia who decided to build their own digital twin a number of years ago. And Woodside used IoT Greengrass, IoT Core, IoT Sitewise to build up this great set of digital twins of their own process. And they've been getting a ton of value out of this. But listening to Woodside, listening to our customers, they were delightfully unsatisfied with the experience. And they said to us, there's a place for you here. There's a way for you as AWS to make this much, much simpler. And they tell us that there's big challenges in building digital twins. One of those is still a fundamental challenge of just getting access to the data that they need. These vendor systems are, again, great at what they do. They've been designed for a very particular set of functions, and they've been designed to operate that way the best that they can. But it doesn't make it necessarily easy to operate with these systems in digital twin because they weren't designed to do that. So that's one big challenge. Number two, creating living digital representations of the as-built system can be a really big challenge. Often you may have CAD drawings or design drawings of a process, a piece of equipment, or an entire shop floor at your disposal. But over time, through maintenance, through evolution, through modernization efforts, these become out of date. Nearly as fast as you can design these 3D simulation environments, they're almost out of date again, right? So this becomes a really big challenge. And we saw a way that we could help make that easy to overcome that challenge and build that up faster. And again, we're looking at all of this to drive business outcomes. So we've focused in really hard on what are the outcomes our customers are trying to achieve. And we really listened to our customers on this one to understand the challenges and the pain points that they had. So today, I'm really excited to tell you again, as you probably heard in Adam's keynote, about AWS IoT TwinMaker. So TwinMaker makes it easy to create digital twins of real-world systems. We listened to our customers on this. We worked with them. This has been a very long journey for us. And we've taken what I think is a unique approach to helping customers with digital twins by creating almost a digital twin studio, an easy way for developers to quickly assemble, create, and run their own digital twins without having to be a 3D expert, without having to worry about the models changing constantly, and without worrying about that data access. We listened to our customers on that data access point, and they told us they want to access data where it lives without having to duplicate storage. So we delivered that with TwinMaker. We also heard that it's a really big challenge to accurately model that 3D environment, and once you do, it changes. So we partnered with great companies like Siemens, like Matterport, who already have these great 3D twins and these great scanning technologies that allow customers to quickly and easily create those 3D scans and then import them into TwinMaker. Working with customers in our beta program, we also heard from them that these digital representations are great, and we love the living digital representation, but sometimes we need real eyes on it. We need to understand what's actually happening in real time. And the twin can show us all sorts of things, but sometimes we want eyes on it. So we heard that, and we integrated Kinesis video streams directly into our digital twin product so that customers can quickly and easily tap into a security camera, tap into a live active camera, and right in conjunction with their digital twin, pull up a live video to see exactly what's going on. That way, if you see a process stopping, you're not sure why, you're getting notifications that there's no product coming off a belt, switch on the camera, and suddenly you see, oh my God, there's a blockage. The things are falling off the belts. We need to dispatch a crew right away to help this. So we've got this unique view of having the live video straight into our digital twins. And what this does is it creates much better situational awareness for the operators. And this is driving those business outcomes that we talked about. Now, let's talk about Envista. They're a company that's part of our beta program. Envista is a global manufacturer of fiber, resins, and chemical intermediaries. And as part of our beta program, Envista wanted to use AWS IoT TwinMaker, but they had already been working with Matterport. And they had these great scans that they already had at their disposal. So this is what drove us to say, all right, there's a great play here to go to market with our partners, make this really simple for customers. And with a company like Matterport, you can pull out your iPhone yourself and scan your environment, and it'll create that 3D representation. You can then import that Matterpack file straight into our product, TwinMaker, and start overlaying the widgets, start overlaying alarms and events, gather that IoT data from the sensors, and overlay that with the twin. Let's see what that looks like from Envista and Matterport. So using this technology, you can see they're scanning with their iPhones. This came out of the real estate business, in fact, and has been applied to the industrial field now. Envista is aiming to improve their productivity and improve their efficiency in field operations. They're looking to improve that environmental health and safety excellence. And this is going to further give them opportunities to leverage expertise inside their own workforce to find new value for customers. You can see on the screen there how sophisticated this can be just with your scanning using your iPhone and then overlaying our widgets. Now I want to show you TwinMaker itself. If we could roll the video for TwinMaker, please.
Digital transformation is producing a wealth of benefits for companies, but it's also creating vast troves of operational data. In order to stay competitive, we need to create a centralized view of silos of data. This is where digital twins step in, a working, scalable, living digital representation of your facility as an operating ecosystem, visualized in 3D. But until now, doing this was complicated and out of the reach of many customers. Introducing AWS IoT TwinMaker, a service built to bring digital twins within reach for everyone. With AWS IoT TwinMaker, we give you the power to easily bring together sensors, data, equipment, production lines, and live video into a consolidated digital version of your operations. By importing your existing 3D models directly into the service, you can then create immersive 3D visualizations of your real-world environment, showing real-time data, video, and insights, enabling your operators to make more informed decisions more quickly. Start building today and see what AWS IoT TwinMaker can bring to light for your business.
So we're pretty excited about that, as you can imagine. Now, if you missed it with all the ongoings of reInvent, we can't talk about digital twins without talking about complex digital twins and simple digital twins. There's a huge variety of twins that we're going to be looking at creating. And in all the ongoings here, you might have missed this very important announcement of our relationship with Siemens. Siemens is a leader in software for creating comprehensive digital twins for design, manufacturing, and service. They're integrating AWS IoT TwinMaker with their capabilities in their accelerator portfolio. Together, we're expecting to be able to solve digital twin solutions from the very simple to the most complex. And there's a collaboration on digital twins here that we really believe is going to take us into the future. And this goes along with that very important collaboration announcement that we had this week with Siemens. I really encourage you all to go check out the AWS IoT for Industrial booth in the SANS Expo, where you can see a really cool Siemens demonstration integrated with AWS IoT TwinMaker. Please go check that out. This is a really exciting thing for us, and I would really encourage you to go check that one out. Now, digital twins are just so critical. I want to tell you about one more customer, Carrier, who is also using AWS IoT TwinMaker. You might have seen some case studies that we've done with Carrier in the past around managing cold chain storage using IoT Greengrass and AWS IoT Core. And we've continued that relationship with Carrier into the next generation here. Carrier is using AWS IoT Core, AWS IoT Greengrass, AWS IoT Sitewise, Neptune, Kinesis, S3. They're using a ton of our services to build out their own next generation of smart platforms, including Carrier's Abound platform. So I'd like to invite Bobby George, the SVP and CDO of Carrier, to the stage to share Carrier's story. Over to you, Bobby.
Thank you, Mike, and I'm delighted to be here. So Carrier is a company very similar to AWS, founded on a foundation of innovation. We innovate relentlessly for our customers, bringing to market more than 100 products every year. We have one focus. Our focus is to create healthy, safe, and sustainable buildings and cold chain solutions, and that's relentlessly what we are after. The events of the last decade, and especially over the last couple of years, have created a sense of a secular trend that affects each and every one of us. A key thing that has happened is around the pandemic and the pandemic-infused activities around air quality and increased awareness of internal air quality. A pandemic that is propagated through air pollutions has, through the air has created a sense of heightened awareness of the air we breathe and the spaces we live in. The second thing is the distribution of vaccines, a key aspect of ensuring that we put an end to this pandemic. And that's where the connected cold chain solutions come in play. How do we ensure the safe distribution of vaccines from the point of origin to the point of destination and ensure that it is temperature controlled? And the third aspect is the whole element of sustainability, climate change, and global warming. We, as an industry, contributes to about 15% of the global emissions around greenhouse gases. So we have an opportunity to be part of the solution. The changes that we see today with acceleration of digitalization, connectivity, and all of the changes that we see associated with products that Mike and his team has talked about are the ones that allow us to be in a position to be as a part of the solution to these challenges. So let's take a look at the state of the building industry. The built environment today accounts for about 40% of the total energy consumed in the world. Okay? 40% of the total energy consumed in the world. Hyper-efficient buildings have to be a key part of the solution to our climate challenge. So let's take the example of the United States. There are about 100 million odd commercial buildings in the United States. Today, these buildings go through about 1% of the buildings go through an annual energy retrofit. Okay? Now, if we were to meet the Paris Climate Accord goals of reducing the global emissions and the global warming potential mid-century to less than 1.5 degrees centigrade, that is to be 4 times the amount of energy retrofit. So there's got to be a shift. There has got to be a focus in driving this capability in all of our buildings. Okay? On the other hand, the pandemic has created increased awareness about internal air quality. What does that mean? That means increased ventilation in spaces. That means increased filtration, increased air turns. All of these result in and contribute to higher energy use in the buildings. So it's an optimization challenge. How do we optimize between driving internal air quality and high quality of indoor spaces with driving energy efficiency in these buildings that we live in? So if adopted, the desire of the ability of smart technologies alone stands to reduce global carbon emissions by about 15% by year 2030 at scale. Okay? So then you might wonder, what is preventing the industry from moving forward? What is stopping us? Challenges to and barriers to adoption of these smart building technologies have been essentially around siloed building systems. So in a building like this that we are in, you have multiple systems. You have the heating and cooling system, you have the energy management systems, you have the lighting systems, you have the safety and security and access systems. So all of these different systems have proprietary standards and protocols that prevent them from working and interacting with each other. That's a big challenge. Most of these buildings are commissioned as snowflakes. There are not really great standards around how buildings are commissioned. And then proving ROI for investments in technology around smart building technology has always proven to be a challenge in the past. There have been few areas in which we have building owners and operators have been able to efficiently drive smart building technology investments into their building. However, that trend is changing. People are learning of ways in which we can use technology to drive building efficiency and create ROI for those investments, especially as these technology trends continue to evolve. So what did we do at Carrier? In partnership with AWS, we created a platform called Abound. Abound is a platform for safe ensuring building health, building efficiency, and effective operation of equipment inside the building. So let me talk about a few examples of AWS services that we use in Abound. So one is we've got the challenge of getting all of these devices and ensuring that all the data from these devices are abstracted out of these devices. So we use services like IoT, IoT Core, Greengrass, and time series data to be able to ensure that the data is streaming in and are enriched. Now we infuse context into this data. The key aspects of how we drive context into a building data is the spaces, association of the spaces with the systems that are in those buildings, and tying that to the occupant, the people that occupy those spaces, and creating an ontology around the building so that now you can then drive outcomes out of it. We use technologies like the TwinMaker service Mike just launched. We've been working with AWS on this for a while to create digital twins of equipment in the building so that we can predict the effective operation of the equipment, right? So we can look at predictive failures, we can look at ensuring that the assets that our customers have invested in continue to operate at the highest level of efficiency. We use technologies like Lambda and serverless to drive healthy outcome monitoring for healthy outcomes and mitigation strategies inside buildings. So we see data when ventilation rates are low and carbon dioxide levels are high inside a building. How do you ensure immediate responses to those actions to ensure that the occupants experience the best air quality possible? And then finally, how do we then take all of this data, apply AWS AI and ML services to be able to then drive optimization for energy efficiency? So these are a few examples of services that we use to then bring to bear the capability set that we think are absolutely required for the future to ensure healthy, safe, and sustainable buildings in the future. So we have one goal, that is to create responsive, resilient, and efficient and sustainable buildings. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Hey, thanks so much, Bobby. It's just really cool to get to work with really innovative companies like Carrier, who do so many things with IoT and with our services. We love working with them. Thanks so much, Bobby. And I just also wanted to personally congratulate you on recently becoming an AWS partner with Abound. So congratulations for that, Bobby. All right, so I've had a lot of fun today talking a little bit about our services, but we have great partners. We have great solutions in our catalog. We have, over 700 qualified partner devices in our IoT catalog today, in our IoT partner catalog. We have 300 AWS IoT partner solutions, and these come from great companies out there like Siemens, PTC, Hitachi, Ericsson, Deutsche Telekom. We have tons of great partnerships in this space who can all help you get going, if that's the stage you're at, or help you design and build entire IoT solutions. So really encourage you to check out our IoT partner solutions catalog. And you can trust that all of these are going to work correctly and consistently with our IoT cloud applications. The AWS IoT team has also created a number of sessions at this reInvent, so I really encourage you to go check these out. Some of these have already happened, so please feel free to check those out on demand in our virtual reInvent platform. Some of them are yet to come. Check these out. We have deeper dives. We've got great chalk talks. If you want to learn more about TwinMaker or ExpressLink or any of the other many IoT services that we're launching at this reInvent, please do check those out. And I would also encourage you to check out the AWS Powers Edge to Cloud Solutions leadership session with our VP, Bill Vass, VP of Engineering for our group. Please check that out at 2:30 p.m. today. And if you want to learn more, there's always resources online. Again, we've got the virtual reInvent platform, so please check out those on-demand sessions if you want to learn more. We've also got our partner catalog and our AWS IoT services catalog, so do check those out. I just wanted to thank you all for joining me. I really appreciated you. Thanks to my co-presenter, GM of IoT Automotive, Mike Jamalukas. Special thanks to Bobby George from Carrier for joining us today. And thank you all for spending the time with us. Thanks a lot.